Welcome back to another episode of Authentic Man Podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers, and this is one of my mini episodes where I just get into a topic. And I was talking to a man recently, and we were talking about intimacy and the different types of intimacy. And he wasn't aware of the different types of intimacy, so I thought, I should record this because I've read many blog posts and podcasts and stuff about the different types of intimacy. And I felt it was important to actually have a recording as well of this because I think we're not always clear on intimacy, right? One of the things that happens is that we think intimacy and sex are the same thing because we use the word intimacy as a for some reason the word I need has just completely escaped me, like a replacement word of a euphemism. That's the word I want, a euphemism for sex, when it isn't. They're two different things, right? As you'll hear, or one is inside of the other or can be inside of the other. Intimacy, what is intimacy? Intimacy really is a sense of closeness, between people, or you could even argue you have intimacy with yourself because there's our different parts of ourselves, our emotional selves, our mental selves, spiritual selves, and so forth, or our shadow selves. So you could argue there is intimacy within us, but we're talking about intimacy with others. So it's a sense of closeness and ability to kind of trust and share with them, right? Be close to them, whether that's emotionally close and the different types of closeness which I'm going to go into. And this type of intimacy I'm talking about here, this closeness, is not reserved just for partners and relationships. This is also in friendships or family relationships and so forth. It is the glue that connects us, right? It is that feeling of feeling connected with someone. Yeah, that is what intimacy for me is and what I've observed in many men and women. And when we struggle for intimacy in interpersonal relationships, we often feel lonely. When our relationships lack intimacy and closeness, we can feel very lonely. And that happens within a relationship, a romantic relationship, as well as in friendships as well. There's been lots of studies about intimacy, as you can imagine. And really, the studies show that it helps increase fulfillment of relationships and satisfaction within a relationship as well. It can help us feel connected. It can help us feel more trust as well, which I think is a really important thing that we don't always realize when it comes to closeness and intimacy. And it allows our relationship to get more and more intimate, and allows us to feel more and more safe to open up, to express parts of ourselves that maybe we don't always feel comfortable with, right? And it's been known to increase well-being for human beings, combat loneliness, depression, and just generally the overall quality, as I said. And as I don't know if you know this, but Stanford have been running a long-standing study about health, people's health, and what they found is the quality of someone's relationships is the biggest precursor for living longer and living healthier. So nurturing intimacy within all of your relationships will help you live longer, even in your work relationships. So let's go through these. Physical intimacy, right? I like to call this physical intimacy is consensual touch and physical interactions, right? I'm actually going to say sexual intimacy is separate, in my opinion, to this. So the first one is physical intimacy. And that's really just how we touch and feel safe to touch one another, right, in our relationship. Yeah. And there's obviously levels to that because there'll be context that comes into sometimes we feel perfectly safe to kiss our partner or our friend, maybe at home. But if we are in front of their parents, we may not feel that so much so, right? But physical intimacy is really important for all relationships, particularly romantic relationships. No matter how much you feel like you're not a touchy-feely person, potentially, or you don't like touch, or it feels awkward or uncomfortable, it's very good for you in that, you release oxytocin and so forth, which is a connection hormone, which really can be calming to the mind, the nervous system, the body as well. And examples of physical intimacy are holding hands, kissing, hugging, even just a high five, can be that, or massages and so forth. So that's the first one. The next bit of intimacy is sexual intimacy. And I like to keep this separate from physical intimacy because I just thought it's a slightly separate thing. And that is the intimacy in the realm of sex and sexual energy. That can be anything from sharing fantasy. That can be anything from sharing, a bed to sexual interactions and so forth. And flirting, even, you could argue, comes inside of sexual intimacy, depending what level of flirting you're operating in. And this is where we feel that we feel want to be close enough to someone to interact with them sexually. And like I said, that can just be running sexual energy with somebody. That can be connecting with someone in a way that's flirtatious and talking about sex. You know, that's a big part of sexual intimacy to me, is talking about sex. A really important part for relationships, and not enough of us talk about sex enough with our partners, especially if we're struggling for sex in the relationship. Often it stops being talked about. The next one I got here is emotional intimacy. And this is really being able to express our feelings, good and bad, right? It's about being vulnerable, about being able to open up and feel safe to do so and be validated and understood, right? And be held in that. That's the level of emotional intimacy we're really looking for, is where I can express my fears and my worries and my concerns. My partner listens to me, seeks to understand, seeks to be compassionate, seeks to be curious. What erodes emotional intimacy is judgment, personalization, not listening, ignoring and belittling, for example. Those all erode emotional intimacy. What kind of boosts emotional intimacy, as I said, is listening very deeply, being curious, being empathetic, seeking to understand, even asking questions for clarity, right? And examples are, sharing how you feel about something, sharing a past experience, maybe a traumatic experience or a difficult experience in your life. These are some simple ways we can do emotional intimacy. Next up, the fourth one now, is intellectual intimacy. I see this as like being able to share ideas, my thoughts and ideas, and have conversations that are intellectually stimulating. We may be someone who really likes to debate politics or, history or the effects of certain ideas and concepts. You might want to talk about the shadow for hours on end, or psychology or philosophy. This is intellectual intimacy. Where we feel we feel intellectually close, and we don't have to agree to be intellectually close, right? We just have to be able to, again, listen, right? Listen and be curious and be interested in someone else. That can also be, sharing and reading books together. It could be even like talking about movies you've watched before. It could be even down to, planning certain projects that you want to create, or even learning a new language, I guess, because that's an intellectual endeavor. Next up, fifth up, is spiritual intimacy. And this is really where we share our spiritual beliefs. They can be religious beliefs, or they can be more universal. That could be me sharing with you my belief that, the universe, we're interconnected through energy, or it could be sharing my ideas about God and any particular religion. That's a spiritual intimacy. Often we actually really lack spiritual intimacy with people because of judgment or fear of being judged. We don't share what we think because we think other people are going to judge us very quickly. It can be as simple as something as watching a sunrise together and just marveling the beauty of being alive. It can also be, meditating together, maybe doing breathwork together, whatever spiritual practice that you have, embodiment practice, whatever you feel is in a spiritual practice. And everything can be a spiritual practice. So spiritual intimacy can be very important for some people, highly, highly important. And it's something that we need to actually, I think, pay attention to, because I believe that our relationships are spiritual entities, vehicles for us to grow and become more expansive human beings, more connected, more loving, more open. So I think it's an important one to pay attention to. And then we come into experiential intimacy, and this is enjoying in activities together, activities and experiences together. And some of these will overlap, like, an experiential intimacy could be watching the sunset with someone, which could be spiritual for some people, right? It is doing things together, having experiences. My partner also, her mum has a saying, is like creating memories together, and that's a really good way to look at it. It's like, how are we creating memories together? Because that is a really important part of intimacy. It's creating memories and ideas together. Up next, a little pause for a drink there. Up next is social intimacy. How do we interact with other people? This is where we take our relationship, friendship, or romantic into the context of being with other people. So that would be, being connected to other people around us, bringing our friends together as a social unit as well, right? This is social intimacy to me. And I think this is something I see in a lot of relationships that couples really struggle with, is like bringing their relationship in the context of friendship and community. And they struggle with that. Maybe there's jealousy. Maybe there is shyness or not a desire to get to know someone else's friends and family and so forth. But this is a really important part, again, in our lives, of being socially intimate with other people. I have up here conflict intimacy, which is really about how close we can be in and understanding and respectful and caring during during conflict. And that's actually a really important thing. When we're in conflict, I believe one of the hallmarks of a good relationship is the quality of which people have conflict. If they're shouting and screaming and name calling, if there is a refusal to talk, if they're complete shutting down of certain topics, then the level of intimacy in conflict is low. Because high conflict intimacy in my books is listening, even when you don't agree with someone, right? Even if what they're saying to you is utter bullshit, is respecting them because you love that person and you know that their opinion, their thoughts, their feelings are important just simply because you love them, right? Or you care about them, or they're meaningful to you. And it's that ability to stay not so much neutral, but unreactive to your opinions and your emotions in that moment, and actually listen to them and being with them. And that really helps with this level of conflict intimacy, which I think is very important. And that's it today. That's it. That's what I got for you. Those are the different ways I think that intimacy is really important. I'm not going to read them all off, but it's such an important way in which we can cultivate these different types of intimacy at different areas of our relationships, from physical, sexual, to social, to emotional, and so forth. And we can continue to build on those in our relationship to create a deeper foundation of more care, more trust, more connection. You know, there's so many people I speak to and they're lacking trust in a relationship, or they're lacking connection. And these are the ways that we build connection through these many types of intimacy. So if you're looking to go deeper into these sorts of ideas, or you've heard me say something, you think, man, I need more of that in my relationship, or I've been struggling to create that in my past relationships, I still have one spot open over the next few weeks to start coaching with me one-to-one. And because they're filling up quickly, actually. I've got one more left, and that might actually be gone before you message me, but I'll be open up again probably in May for one more person. So if you're interested, please drop me an email. And before we go, I'll let you know that I've got a workshop coming up with me, and also called Anxious Avoidant Relationship Work. I can't get my words there. Me and also running this workshop and really taking together the wisdom that we've gained from anxious avoidant our relationship, and coaching many couples who are in that dynamic. I've coached many avoidant men who are dating and in relationship with anxious women, and she's done the reverse with the women that she's worked with, and we've worked with couples in that way. And we're just distilling a lot of the goodness that we've taken from this work that we've done about how to make these relationships work, how to create connection, how to both do kind of healing of yourselves, your own attachment wounds in the relationship, while staying connected, while staying loving. So if you're interested in that, that's on May the 7th in the evening, 7:30 p.m. I think it is UK time. The link to purchase is in the show notes. So if you're interested in that, just head over there.